Thank you very much. Frank, thanks for the comments, the support, and obviously for being here this evening. Like Frank mentioned, him and I go way back to 1991, and if you've been at any fundraisers recently with Frank and I, you may have seen some pictures of him and I during that 91 campaign. And I'll tell you that since 91, I look a lot different. Frank, on the other hand, is the Dick Clark of the Senate, and I couldn't look the same as he did back then. But I appreciate everyone coming out here today. Obviously, for some, it's a tough day to come out. I received a few emails from our friends and associates that there were some high school graduations they had to attend. Accidentally, we conflicted with the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce event around the corner. And I almost had the worst thing happen to me today, which was my largest cheerleader almost could not be here. All y'all know my wife, Shelly, who's floating somewhere. She's a lot taller than I feel. But you can't have a political event without my wife, and I will tell you, we spoke this morning. She did endorse me, and she did say that I could use her name publicly, which if you know Shelly, how private she is, that's not an easy thing to get. But thank you again for being here. 4 years ago, I stood in front of you and asked for your support when I ran for City Council of Virginia Beach. And I was honored to get it and to go on to be elected to City Council. And when I ran on a pretty simple platform. It was to continue to grow the economy of Virginia Beach, to continue to have the best schools in the country, and to find additional government efficiency where it was available. And hopefully, you feel the way I do, that I've lived up to those promises. Not just from my votes, but also from my actions. Not long after getting elected, I had the opportunity to work with outsourcing and leasing the sportsplex. An opportunity to take a government facility and turn it over to private management. And during that process, the negotiations got a little bit hairy. And at one point, I asked city staff and Chuck Thornton, who is the operator, to come into the city manager's office, and we hammered out right there the remaining challenges to make this partnership occur. Since then, we've saved almost $500,000 a year just on the maintenance of that facility alone. And we've increased tenfold the number of events that have occurred at the Sportsplex annually. And as you've seen, we've got the UFL there now, and we're excited about that next year's bill coming up. More recently, you've probably read about the Shared Regional Services Committee. You know, these are tough economic times and requires us in government to look to find efficiencies so we can find ways to deliver the same level of service that our citizens have come to demand and expect, but at a lower cost. And although many people believe we can look inward, and we should, I believe that there was opportunities to work regionally, to find duplicity and opportunities for economies of scale to save additional money. I'm honored to be on that committee with Barkley Wynn from Norfolk, Rick West from Chesapeake, the respective city managers, and some C-levels of Fortune 500 companies to build that partnership and find those opportunities to save money for our citizens and for our taxpayers. Probably most recently was fighting for our school system. I'm a proud product of the Virginia Beach school system, having graduated from Virginia Beach High School. Or, sorry, Grand Run High School. In Virginia Beach. There we go. And I'm very proud of our school system and the level of achievement it's attained and the recognition it's achieved nationwide. And I think we have to continue the fight to maintain that level of education for the city of Virginia Beach. But as we found recently, sometimes that requires us to make tough decisions. And I'm very happy not only to stand in front of you today, knowing that I fought for, with my colleagues, to maintain the funding we needed, to maintain that level of education Virginia Beach has come to achieve in our nation, been recognized for, and our citizens expect, but also to help draft language that went into the budget that allows me to stand in front of you today and say 4 cents of that 6-cent real estate rate increase is dedicated to education. It's dedicated to fill the $30 million annual shortfall that has occurred from funding from the state level during these tough economic times. I can also tell you that the other 2 cents is dedicated for the need for road construction in the city of Virginia Beach. as well as to support the line of duty benefits for our first responders, both of which were zeroed out in the state's budget this year for those same economic factors. And almost as important as I can stand in front of you today and say that when times get better, and the state gets this revenue back, and they start funding these issues at the levels that we were accustomed to, that money will go back into the pockets of the taxpayers as we thank them for their help to maintain the level that they expect and we become accustomed to. For me, that's what fiscal responsibility is all about. It's not about finding tough economic times and putting your head in the sand and not doing anything and just praying that we don't slide backwards too far until we get to the other side. It's about stepping up, recognizing those challenges, asking for the help of the citizens, and doing so in a manner where you ask for their support, you tell them where it's going, you put the protection in place to make sure those revenues go there, and then when it's no longer needed, you stop asking for those revenues. And I'm very happy with my colleagues to have been a part of that this year. Now, those tough decisions of myself and my colleague, as well as the tough decisions of councils before us, have allowed us to achieve many accolades over the last few years. Everything from having one of the best school systems in the country, the best place to raise a family, the best place to start a business in the country, and one of the best beaches in the country. And probably one that I'm most proud of for our city is having the best managed city in the United States. Now, those don't come easily. It comes from a lot of hard work and a lot of effort and partnership with our citizens, work done by the council, not present, but also past, to build the momentum that allows us to get there. Now, many politicians, when they decide to run for office, will tell everyone we're at a crossroads. I'll tell you, Virginia Beach isn't at a crossroads. Virginia Beach hasn't been at a crossroads for some time. Virginia Beach is on a springboard. Through the efforts of councils and citizens over the last couple of decades, we've built tremendous momentum to build the prosperity of Virginia Beach for its citizens and its future. And we need to continue to do so. Now, as you know, you probably saw the paper this morning and realized I have an opponent. And I'll tell you, the pilot was right this morning. This isn't an issue of myself versus my opponent. It's a contrast between messages. It's a contrast between, should we stay on that springboard and continue to spring forward and then continue to grow to prosperity for our citizens for this generation in the future? Or should we do what this group that found my opponent suggests and back off and risk losing everything that we worked so hard for? Town Center, our great education system, the great future that we've built for opportunity for jobs and economic development in Virginia Beach. That's what they think we should do. Now, the choice for me and for all of you is probably very simple what the proper message should be. It should be to continue moving forward. But that's the message that we have to get out in this election. And it's going to be a tough election. We're in an election cycle with the president, with the senatorial race, with arguably probably one of the most expensive congressional races in this country. And to get this message out is going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money. Which is why as you leave today, I have some items on the table over there I hope you take with you. The first is a refrigerator magnet. Now, I don't expect any of you here today to forget my name between now and November. And I don't expect you to forget when the election is either. But if you'd like to have one, I'd ask you to take one. But more importantly, please take a couple for the children of your neighbors. I can tell you from experience that if you give an 8-year-old a refrigerator magnet, it will stay on that refrigerator until they go off to college. So, please take a couple. Now, the second thing over there are car bumper magnets. Now, most elections you have bumper stickers, and you'll hear the electives over and again promise you that the new bumper stickers, they come off easy, and while if they don't come off easy, call me and the elector will go out and they'll take it off for you. And we all know what happens, eh? They don't come off easy, and B, after the elect is nowhere to be found. So we spent a little bit more money, and we got magnetic ones. So I can guarantee you that those things will come off after the election. Although you feel free to leave them on there, because we have to do it again 4 years later. So. But those magnets are truly worth $1,000 in advertising for each one of those that ends up on a vehicle. So please consider taking one or two if your spouse is here, or even if she's not, just put it on the car anyway, and do that when you get home. Lastly are the contribution envelopes. Now many of you here have already contributed to my campaign, and I really appreciate you doing so early. But I can tell you, we need a lot more help. You know, those of you that know me know I'm really not good asking for money, and it's really not my nature. But 4 years ago I realized that if I was going to ask my wife to go through and make the sacrifices necessary of a spouse so that I can run a political campaign, I need to be able to ask for others for help, for the resources, so I can win that campaign. And that's what I'm doing here this evening, is asking for that additional help, so we know that we can be successful. Now, as we conclude, I'll leave you with an answer to a question that Shelley asked me about 1.5 years ago. We were driving down the car, and as Shelley sometimes does, she asked me a rhetorical question, and I answered them anyway. And she said, Glenn, you know, are you going to run for re-election next election cycle? And of course, I said yes. And she said, well, what are you looking to get out of being on council? What do you want at the end of all this? And I said, honey, the answer is really simple. There's going to come a time that I know I'm not going to be an elected official anymore. It's going to be through my own volition or the actions of the voters. And all I want at that time is to go look back and say I made the right decisions I believed in, that I knew were in the best benefit of the city and the citizens. And given the chance, I would make those decisions over again. I can stand in front of you today, and so for the last 3.5 years, that's exactly what I've done. And what I'm asking for is to help, so I can stand again in front of you 4 years from now and be able to make that same statement. So thank you very much for being here. Cal, I don't know if you're still here, but thank you for the food. Please enjoy the wine, please enjoy the food, and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you all very, very much.